The sun was slowly sinking over the horizon, draping the residential area of Brookside with a golden glow that caressed the facades of the perfectly aligned houses, their lawns trimmed to the nearest millimeter. The trees, still clad in their flamboyant autumn leaves, cast long, distorted shadows on the sidewalks. The air was soft, charged with that characteristic smell of late autumn days, a mixture of damp earth, dead leaves, and a light, cool breeze. Jayden Carter, 15, walked quietly, headphones hanging around his neck, listening to the soothing rhythm of dusk more than any song. At his side walked Max, his German shepherd with an imposing build but a light gait, as if he were almost floating on the ground. His black-brown coat shone in the last rays of the sun, and his deep amber eyes seemed to reflect both intelligence and loyalty. Max wasn't just a dog. To Jayden, he was a silent refuge, a faithful confidant. He remembered the day his father, Malcolm Carter, had given it to them for his 10th birthday, after months of Jayden begging, making lists, drawing pictures, arguing that having a dog would help him be more responsible. But what he didn't understand at the time was how essential Max would become to his balance. Max was there when Jayden faced teasing at school, because his glasses were too big or his skin was too dark for some classmates. He was there on the evenings when his father returned late from his missions at the FBI, and when his mother, taken too soon by a devastating illness, was cruelly missed at home. Max never needed words to understand when Jayden was bad. He just rested his head on his knees, his gaze fixed on him, patient and reassuring. That evening, the walk seemed harmless, almost ritual. Jayden let Max walk off-leash, trusting. He knew his dog wasn't the type to chase squirrels or wander off. Max always stayed nearby, sometimes stopping to sniff a tree, inspect a twig, before returning to his master with the same unwavering loyalty. Jayden stopped near a bench where younger children were playing on creaky swings. He watched Max take a few steps away to sniff around a mound of dead leaves. The boy smiled, his thoughts wandering to happy memories. He absently stroked the worn leather collar around Max's neck, a collar he had chosen himself when the puppy was still clumsy and too big for his paws. It was a simple moment, but perfect. One of those moments that you don't know are precious until they become memories. The calm was abruptly broken by a shrill cry. "This dog. He doesn't have a leash. He's going to attack me." Jayden jumped, turning to see an elderly woman across the street. She was frozen on the sidewalk, her handbag raised like a poultry shield. His eyes, widened by thick glasses, were fixed on Max with inordinate panic. Jayden raised his hands, an instinctive gesture of peace.
"No, ma'am. Eisnis, Iesturju."
He has never bitten anyone. But his words seemed to dissolve into thin air. The woman, visibly deaf to his explanations, hurriedly took out her phone and dialed an emergency number with a trembling hand. Jayden felt a shiver of incomprehension run down his spine. It was just a misunderstanding, he thought. She was going to calm down. After all, Max hadn't even barked. But things moved quickly. Too fast.
Les dan 2 minutes later, der ouro fan engine tore de silence.
A police car came speeding down the road, stopping abruptly with a squeal of tires. The door slammed and a man in uniform rushed out.
Officer Blake Harris.
Tall, his face closed, his jaw clenched as if he was chewing on anger that he couldn't swallow. His hand was already resting on his weapon, as a natural extension of his fear or misplaced power. He didn't take the time to analyze the situation. No looking to understand. Just an order. Dry, sharp. "You. Back off immediately," he shouted, pointing an accusing finger at Jayden. Jayden's heart leapt in his chest. He instinctively raised his hands, palms open. "Sir, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just walking my dog." His voice trembled slightly, not from guilt, but from the cold incomprehension of suddenly finding himself in the sights of an authority who asked no questions. Max, sensing the commotion, approached Jayden, ears pricked, tail slightly lowered, alert but not aggressive. He wanted to protect, as always. He instinctively placed himself between Jayden and the officer. Harris drew his gun, pointing it directly at the dog. "Back off," he roared, his finger trembling on the trigger. "I see it in his eyes. He's going to attack." Jayden felt dizzy. His heart was beating too hard, too fast. He knew Max would never hurt anyone. Never.
No.
No, he just wants to protect me. He won't.
Van. The sound of the gunshot burst like thunder in the clear sky.
Max immediately collapsed, his body collapsing to the pavement with a thud, his brown fur stained red. A heartbreaking scream burst from Jayden's throat. A primal, raw cry, that of a heart broken in an instant. He fell to his knees, gripping Max's body, feeling the heat of his blood soak into his jeans. His hands trembled as they stroked the still warm fur.
No, stay with me, please. Max.
But Max didn't move. His gaze, once lively and faithful, had faded. The world around Jayden had become blurred, smothered by the weight of pain that no words could describe. A pain that would mark his life forever. When Malcolm Carter arrived on the scene, a shiver of apprehension ran down his spine.
The stream of police and ambulance sirens broke the silence at the end of the day.
Passers-by, smartphones raised, filmed the scene, capturing the pain and anguish that spilled onto the sidewalk of Brookside Park. Malcolm had seen scenes of violence in his FBI career, but nothing that touched his soul as deeply as this scene. He immediately saw Jayden, his only son, his eyes flooded with tears, his face marked by incomprehension and horror. His body was trembling all over, shaken by uncontrollable sobs, his hands covered in blood where he held his dog, Max, his lifelong friend, his protector, now immobile. Max, the dog he had loved like family, lying there, eyes wide open in a frozen expression of terror. Malcolm stomped forward, his imposing figure silhouetted against the blur of chaos. The look hard, but beneath the surface, a silent pain, a burden only a father could carry in that moment. Officer Blake Harris, still standing near the patrol car, seemed to be trying to rationalize the incident with an assurance that betrayed his discomfort. Malcolm stopped in front of him, his dark eyes staring at the officer with icy intensity. He didn't need to ask questions to know what he was going to hear. But he had to know. He had to hear this absurd justification. What happened? Malcolm's voice was calm, too calm. It wasn't a question, it was an order. Officer Harris, visibly unsettled, stood up, clenching his fists. He seemed to be searching for words, but he couldn't find them. This animal was dangerous. I acted in self-defense. His voice trembled slightly, but he tried to keep his composure. Malcolm didn't even have to look at Max, his limp body on the floor, or lay eyes on Jayden, his desperate son, to understand the absurdity of the situation. He turned to Harris with incredible coldness, his gaze fixed on the officer as if the truth was already evident in the silence he imposed. This dog has never attacked anyone.
You shot for no reason.
Malcolm's words were harsh, like a sentence. The officer tried to respond, but Malcolm cut him off with a cold, implacable voice.
No, you don't ask me for anything.
You have just made a monumental mistake. Harris frowned, visibly annoyed by this distrust that he did not expect. He stood up straighter, seeking to regain a position of authority. And who are you exactly? He asked arrogantly. Malcolm didn't respond immediately. He slowly slipped a hand into his inside pocket, pulling out his badge. With professional fluidity, he raised it in front of the officer, like a cleaver falling on the head of an accused.
FBI. Office of Internal Affairs.
An icy silence fell on the scene. The air seemed to be cut off. The whispers stopped immediately. The passers-by, until then distracted by their phones, froze. Even Harris lost his composure, his gaze shifting to the badge, and his shoulders relaxed, as if suddenly the weight of the situation was falling on him. That evening, the park surveillance cameras were seized by authorities, and videos taken by witnesses were shared online, flooding social media. The images of Jayden collapsed, holding the body of Max lifeless in his arms, moved thousands of people. The images of a father frozen in his pain, shooting a murderous look at the officer Harris, spread quickly, amplifying public indignation. The media talked about it incessantly. Reporters rushed to the scene, pointing their cameras toward Malcolm Carter. The latter had no intention of stopping there. He had seen too much in his professional life to let this act of injustice go by. He knew that a racist and unpunished crime risked disappearing into the mists of the judicial system. But he wasn't going to allow that. Using all the resources at his disposal, Malcolm began to assemble a compelling case. He called on canine behavior experts to analyze videos taken by passers-by and surveillance cameras. Their verdict was final. Max showed no signs of aggression. Experts confirmed that the animal was calm, only approaching Jayden to show loyalty and support, as it had always done. No threatening gesture had been made. Days passed, and the story spread through the media like wildfire. Officer Harris was suspended pending investigation, and soon, accusations of violence, excessive and disproportionate use of force were brought against him. 3 weeks later, a press conference was organized. In front of a sea of journalists, cameras trained on him, Malcolm Carter stood up and, in a calm but forceful voice, addressed the audience.
Officer Harris senselessly shot an innocent animal, breaking my son's heart.
But even more serious, it reflects a much broader trend in our society. Prejudice, injustice, abuse of power. It's not just about Max. It's a question of what we are willing to accept in this country. Malcolm's words rang through the air, carried with unwavering conviction. The cameras captured every moment, every emotion. He continued, with a piercing and determined look. This time we are not going to be silent. This time there will be consequences. We will fight so that no one ever has to suffer what my son experienced today. Harris was suspended from his duties, then charged with excessive use of force. The case of Max's attack became a symbol, a rallying point for those fighting against racial injustice and systematic police violence. As for Jayden, the pain of the loss of Max never completely died out. He spent nights waking up with a start, his dog's face still imprinted in his mind, like a ghost. But in this pain, he found a new mission. Become a veterinarian. To protect animals, to prevent other innocent people from falling victim to ignorance, fear and violence. Max was no longer there, but his memory lived on in Jayden. Every step he took towards his future, every book he read on animal care, every challenge he overcame, was a way of paying tribute to his faithful companion, his silent hero. And in this fight for justice, he knew that Max's spirit would always be at his side.